Welcome everyone to this evening's City Council workshop to discuss beach marine property and some proposed projects out there. Just a little bit of background, in the last couple of years, the beach marine property was sold, so there are new owners that are looking to do some development and possibly conservation work on the the north side of the marina. They've met with the city staff and myself a couple of times now over the past year or so, and we're at the point where I wanted to bring the rest of the council in so that we could all get on the same page. There's a lot of challenges and opportunities with this project that I didn't feel comfortable either moving forward or stopping the progress without the rest of the council being pretty fully briefed on what would be involved with this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Heather Island, our senior planner, our planning director, who's got a brief presentation for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to just note for the record that we do have some planning commissioners here in the audience to hear our presentation today as well. So I just have a couple of items I'm going to cover with you guys, just some kind of basic information about the property, the land use designations, the zoning districts the property is in, what some of the amendments for the proposed changes will entail, and then what the application process flow is like. So the property of Beach Marine is we broke it down into two separate pieces here. There's a developed portion that is around 27 acres, of which 12.5 is uplands, and you'll see that on the bottom of your screen on the photo. And the other, just over 15 acres, is the actual marina basin itself. The undeveloped portion, which is to the north of the 2nd Avenue North right-of-way, is around 120 acres, and it's a mixture of wetlands, salt marsh, and uplands. The property was rezoned to planned unit development, a PUD, by the previous owner in 2016. And this was done to maintain their existing commercial and industrial uses that are existing on the property now, and to add a residential component to the whole development. And as the mayor mentioned, it was recently purchased by Windward in January of 2020. So just some details on what the current future land use designations are. The developed portion of the property is currently commercial future land use, so that's what you'll see in the red. The undeveloped portion is designated conservation and low-density residential, which is the dark green is the conservation, and then the light yellow on the right side of your map is the low-density residential. And then just off your map to the very top is some adjacent City of Jacksonville Beach owned property that is designated as recreation open space. It's also a bird sanctuary. And the last component to this is in the light green areas just south of the 2nd Avenue North right-of-way. That is recreation and open space land use. And that is where the boat ramps, the park, the City of Jacksonville Park, the parking, and the restaurant are located. So the zoning district designations for this property, again, in the, I guess it's a tan color, is the area that is the PUD. And that was again done in 2016 by the previous owner. The roughly 120 undeveloped acres to the north is designated as residential single-family RS1, which is our lowest intensity residential zoning district. And the portion that kind of surrounds the PUD in the pink is C2, which is a general commercial zoning district. So that contains, again, the restaurant, the park, the boat ramps, and the parking areas. Just a little bit about what the proposed development means in terms of the amendments that will be required for the project. So it's got two components to it. There's a future land use map amendments that would be required. So some of that, and we don't have exact acreage on these, but a portion of the 120 acres that's currently designated as conservation would have to be changed to rec open space to accommodate a realignment of 2nd Avenue North. And another portion of that would have to be designated as commercial to accommodate any proposed commercial buildings and any parking lots associated with that. On the zoning side, a portion of the residential single family would have to be rezoned to commercial or potentially PUD to allow some more flexibility. to accommodate the proposed commercial building and the parking lots. So just a little bit more detail about the timing of those applications and what that would look like for you guys. For the future land use map amendments, and there are some potential changes coming from Tallahassee that could impact this, but generally the application would first be submitted to staff and then it goes to the Planning Commission for consideration. They make a recommendation to City Council. City Council votes to transmit or not transmit to the state agencies for review, and then would potentially adopt the changes. The proposed changes to the future land use map must be consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the city's 2030 comprehensive plan, and it is the applicant's burden to prove that consistency. And then on to the zoning atlas amendments. Let me go back. The future land use map amendments, just time-wise, around 4 to 5 months is kind of our estimate for that process to go through. On the zoning atlas amendments, approximately 3 months for that process. Again, the application is considered by the Planning Commission. They make a recommendation to council. Goes to 2 public hearings of City Council. And the proposed changes to any parts of the zoning atlas are considered based on the factors listed in section 34 of the Land Development Code. And just wanted to add a little note at the bottom that Florida statute does allow these processes to run concurrent with each other. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have or turn it over to the next presentation.
Does anybody have any questions for Heather at this point? All right, I'm sure we will. And Stefan, did you have a presentation?
We do. So, thank you very much, council members, staff, other people that showed up, mayor, for actually putting this together. I think it's a tremendous step forward for all of us. A little bit of history about us and our team. I'm Stefan Johansen. I'm the principal of Windward Marina Group. We own and operate marinas basically from Miami to Cape Cod. I think there's 9 of them. We came in and on our team today we have TR, we have Carl, we have Chris, we have Christian, Tim showed up, and we have Sam. And so that's sort of the Windward team that's been working on what you presented and find a solution basically for give or take 120 acres. So I'll take you quickly back a little bit in terms of history. So our company put our arms around this site about 2 years ago, and I was very fortunate to get an introduction at the time from Congressman Rutherford, who we've been working with quite a bit down at our property in St. Augustine, because we host U.S. Customs and Border Patrol down there with a huge facility that we're very happy about. And so we've been working on expanding that, and that was the first property that we bought up in this area about 3 years ago. We subsequently purchased the shipyard in St. Augustine, and this was the 3rd acquisition. So I don't know if it was by fortune or not, but my wife wasn't too happy at the time that I became a resident of Jack's Beach. I bought a house in Channelside because I started spending so much time up here. And the reason I ended up spending so much time up here is because I love the area. I think there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of intelligence up here that maybe you're not used to as a developer. And we got a lot of people that I feel are pushing in a similar direction that we do. Now, we're marina guys, so we have a big responsibility, obviously, with the environment and running green marinas and protecting our waters. And just as a little bit further introduction, we have the fortunate to work with the city of St. Augustine, a great mayor and a great commission there. And we spent 2 years planning a small town. And we just got that approved about a week ago. We're very happy about that. And it was designed by a company called DPZ. A lot of you guys in planning, you know them. They designed Seaside and Rosemary Beach and Alice Beach, and they became probably legends all over the world in terms of urban planning. And very early on, I actually had Andreas, who's the founder of DPZ, Andres Guani. He came up here and he said, wow, you got another spectacular piece of property. And so that was about 2 years ago when we first met. And so the first thing you do as a developer is, you meet with city council and the mayor and neighbors and everybody and say, well, what does everybody want to do on this property? What does it lends itself to be done? And so just like any type of development's not an easy thing because you got to listen to a lot of people and you got a lot of things to consider, especially when it's close to water. And we have a very successful marine operation that's growing. So the first thing we did is we got into the dredge business. We're going to get into where our dredge spoil site is. We've dredged almost 60,000 cubic yards at this point, and we hope not to dredge in a long time. But I wanted to preface that the most important things for us was to come in and give Beach Marine a facelift. It's the first thing you see when you come over the bridge. And if some of you guys have seen, we've started to change some colors. We've actually done a really cool public kind of a food court park that we just opened that people are enjoying, and we got some barbecue. And I know Fernando, you saw it and you were there, and it's kind of cool because not everybody gets to go into a quote unquote private marina, and there's a lot of things happening in marina, and you want to open that up to pretty much everybody, which I'm going to segue into in a minute when we talk about the North Florida Land Trust, the potential for a park, and the things here. So the first thing that we did following the meeting, and I think Mike, you had just come on board at the time, and it was a different mayor and it was a different council. We took a lot of that information and we noodled it and we built our team and we presented a lot of different versions to you all. And we felt that maybe we weren't getting the traction we were hoping to get. So the driving force behind what we were presenting is a Second Avenue, which I'm sure you all know much more about than I do. But I've driven it in 3 feet of water. It's just unsafe. And it needs to be changed. And the whole corner, there's a lot of accidents and people. We don't have enough trailer parking, so what do people do? They literally park in front of Marine Max, they put their trailers, cut it through, it's a mess. So we started engaging with some civil consultants, and thanks to Tim and Sam who guided us, we reached out to the city of Jacksonville. And about, was it October, Sam, when I think we got the approval from the city of Jacksonville, and they funded $8 million to rebuild Second Avenue. So now we have the money to rebuild Second Avenue, but it's also very important to build Second Avenue in a much bigger picture than not just rebuilding a road. The road can't go sort of to nowhere to what it is today. It needs to accommodate adequate parking for the existing restaurant, which it doesn't have today. It needs to accommodate more trailer parking, which it doesn't have today. It needs to be safe, it needs to be out of the 500-year floodplain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in that breath, we started looking back saying, the old development and the old PUD didn't consider this new road. They didn't consider, literally a submerged road. And personally, I felt at the time that also living at Channelside, maybe a townhouse is not the best use for that property. With all the growth in the area and with the low density limit on the height that we have here, maybe multifamily is the right thing to do here. It's less than a mile from Mayo, so we see a different opportunity in terms of the future development. So how do we do that right? We got to move the road first, and so now we have the money to move the road. The second thing we need to do is put infrastructure in that road, water and sewer, fire lines. I think the current restaurant doesn't even have enough water pressure, or does it have adequate fire protection? So we were looking for a holistic solution. And here we are now, 2 years later, and again, I can't preface enough how grateful we are that all you guys are here listening to us, because I think there's a potential wonderful solution for us, for the city of Jacksonville, and for the city of Jacksonville Beach. And so what we did, we put together sort of a little kind of, we have some exhibits up here, and the first is kind of the overall plan and what, what we're trying to achieve here. And so for those of you guys that had the handout, if you kind of take a look at the site plan real quick, it would be the overall site plan exhibit. Well,
That one,
Oh.
there you go.
okay. So let's just, everybody has this handout, so we kind of talked a little bit about, let's see here, what we got. So we got Second Avenue, we talked about that. The parking, going back in there. And I'm not going to kind of go through it again, but all in all, we have about 100 acres sort of to north of us. And as a side note, we were approached about a year and a half ago by the North Florida Land Trust, which I think is a very important component. They want to build a park there, which we're happy for them to do some stand-up paddle boards, some kayaking, and they would be the custodians of that park. And we got pretty far down the road. So we had the North Florida Land Trust on board. We had the city of Jacksonville on board, and we really need you guys to come on board as well. And so as we flip over today, we talked a little bit about the density. We have 10.3 acres of low-density residential land to the northeast. And that land is, if you look at the big picture there, it's kind of on comprehensive map exhibit. So if you turn into map exhibit number 2, if you look at the right side there, next to the residential, there's a table there. We have about 10.3 acres of, what's that? Right. Next one, right? Next. Go back one. And then we have, in our proposal, so what we would do now in order to move the road and get, the fire trucks, we studied this corner at length. And so not only do we need to get fire rescue trucks and everything, we need a decel lane. We spent quite a bit of time and effort on engineering that road, which by the way is in this sort of joint venture between City of Jacksonville Beach and us. We're funding about $1 million of the civil engineering up front to engineer that road together with City of Jacksonville. But we're basically responsible for the entire engineering and design of that road. City of Jacksonville will then bid it out. They've already bid it. So in turn, they have about $11 million for it. So as you look at what we then do is we convey part of the land we already own, and we push the road north. And TR and Carl, help me out. So by doing that, we give them, and I'm speaking without the notes here, what, 4.5, 5 acres? So
Yeah, we give them 5 acres for the right of way.
yeah, so we give them 4.9 acres of land out of sort of our bucket by pushing the road north. Now what does that do to us? The old road kind of becomes our property at that point, and it helps us spread a little bit more elegantly the density on the multifamily that we want to build, which will then be south of the new road. So that multifamily space and the commercial marine support space that we're proposing all the way to the west, I think it's about 1.78 acres. So we give the city of Jacksonville about 5, and we retain about 1.78 acres. So all in all, we would provide about 10.3 acres for public parking, additional parking for the current restaurant, additional right-of-way, and we would sort of gain ourselves out of that 10 acres, 1.78 acres. In addition to that, the North Florida Land Trust would then we would convey almost 100 acres to them to build a park. And there was some early discussion with the city of Jacksonville Beach and with the current restaurant operator, which is the Rochelle's, to do an opt-out tax, the fun part of the park. Our own sort of commercial, bait and tackle, support retail, marine retail, we would be all 100% for an opt-out tax for our own retail there on the support to help maintain the park. North Florida Land Trust, if you look at it, they're pretty well funded, and so we got, like I said earlier, pretty far down the pipe with them. So in the end, we would, once the road is finished, what happens to the city of Jacksonville Beach? You basically lose about 0.11, help me out, Carl, 0.11 acres, but we give you an additional, I should know these numbers by heart, but there's so many numbers. You get an additional, I think, 0.45 acres. So you gain about 0.3 acres. And by doing that, we would solve Safe Harbor. I guess they changed the name now. The restaurant out there, they would have additional parking because they need it desperately. And that would be kind of towards where the old bridge is. You would also get a bigger park. The park would gain approximately 0.3 acres, I think. And that's, you guys all know where the park is. So what cost is it in then for City of Jacksonville Beach at this point? It's really zero. We've had a lot of, juggling back and forth, and at some point we met with Mike, and Mike said, look, we can't take on any debt, so we're not buying anything. We respect that, that's fine. We can't really contribute to the parking, so we said, okay, we understand. So at the end of the day, the total development that we're proposing, which includes less density, and I think this is really important. We're not asking for more density. We have more density than we can ever build on that site. I think the density is like 600 or 700 units. All we're asking for is when we move the road north, that you will support taking a little bit of that massive density that we have and allowing us to put that on the 1.78 acres. So what does that do then? That gives you a tax base of about $50 million with the multifamily and the retail. And that gives you all about $450,000 of base taxes per year. That grows, and we did that based on 8 mills. 8 mills being what you all kind of get into the coffers. I think, Mike, you probably know this better for it. Is it 4 mills? Okay. So we kind of try to Google it, but all right, so it's 4 mills, so I stand to be corrected. So, it's $200,000 kind of tax impact. Let's talk for a second about the neighbors sort of to the east. So if you guys have walked it, you can't see our barn. Our current barn is 65 feet tall. No one can see that barn. So if there was any concern of neighbors saying, well, if you build some support marine retail out there to the west, absolutely can't see it. And I'll challenge anyone to find it if we ever build it, if they can see it. So, I've been up here a long time, and we really want you all to ask us questions. I'm going to ask the team, TR and Carl, if I left something out. I did, and I actually left out maybe the most important thing. And maybe TR, you can talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan, and you can also kind of close with the 4 action items, if you don't mind. So.
Okay. No.
Okay.
Yeah, you go on this one. So, TR Hangline with Roger Sowers at Jacksonville, 1301 River Place Boulevard. You're representing Windward. So what I'm going to use this map and run through the exact kind of plan amendments that we're talking about, but it is in the handout that you have, it is page 4 that has at the top of it proposed comprehensive plan, land use amendments, and PUD rezoning. So, Stefan mentioned some of these acres. I just want to go through it in a little bit of a kind of precise manner here. So, relocated 2nd Avenue North, that right-of-way, which shows in that kind of brick cross-section there, you can see it, the new right-of-way running for 2nd Avenue North. That is 4.91 acres. We assumed that that may require a comprehensive plan amendment, and Heather mentioned that what in her mind would happen is that that right-of-way would be placed in recreation and open space. Then there is some land right to the south of that, and you'll see it. It's kind of that cross-hatched, moving from upper right to, oh, there you go. That's what I mean.
Figured that one out.
Which one was it? That one?
Yes, sir.
I don't want to blind anyone there. Okay, so the first number, 4.91, it was this right-of-way number here, which includes retention ponds that we may or may not need to change to open space and recreation, but we have went ahead and put the number in anyway. And that's 4.91 acres that would go from conservation protected to recreation open space. Then there's this land in here, which is basically between Beach Marine now and the relocated right-of-way for 2nd Avenue North. That little strip of land in there, that would go from conservation protected to commercial to match up with what Beach Marine has there now. And then in the same vein, the property out here that is proposed for the marine support slash restaurant retail, that property would also go from conservation protected to commercial. So it's these two properties, total of 1.78 acres, which would move, like I said, from conservation protected to commercial. Then, as Stefan said, this land here, which is uplands, currently part of the overall spoil site, that would be parking for trailers and boats for the boat ramp, and that would be improved by Beach Marine. And so it would be parking for additional parking for the boat ramp, any additional parking that the existing restaurant would need, as well as some parking for people who would enjoy the preserve that are going to open there. So all of that would be improved by Beach Marine, and that is about 3.02 acres there that would go from conservation protected to recreation open space. Again, it goes to recreation open space because that's what it supports, that boat ramp, so it's the same, basically the same land use there. Stefan mentioned the property that Windward owns over here, which today is in the low-density residential land use category. If you look at the aerial, you can see that that is uplands and wetlands. Where I'm running the light right now is uplands, and it connects to 19th Street North over here. And this is in the low-density residential comprehensive plan category. What we're proposing is that that property, which is 10.3 acres, that 10.3 acres would be taken out of low-density residential and put into conservation protected. So where the math goes, you're probably wondering why all these acreages? Well, because what we're trying to show, and what we do show, is that the acreage that we are proposing to take out of conservation protected is more than made up for by this acreage over here. So we did the math there on that on the sheet of paper that I mentioned to you. What we would be taking out of conservation protected for 2nd Avenue North, for the parking and everything else that I talked about here, that's 9.71 acres. And we are taking 10.3 acres of low-density residential and putting that into conservation protected. And one of the things that we think that that does is, instead of some kind of residential use that might go in these uplands here, or something that is going to be a surprise maybe, and not something that these people might be thrilled with, this puts this all into conservation protected as a great buffer and preservation area in their backyards right there, along 19th here, and then behind some backyards up in here. So that would go into conservation protected from low density residential, and this is the part that would come out of conservation protected. As Stephen mentioned as well, this is very well vegetated, trees and everything else. And this berm here that surrounds what is now a spoiled pond is also built up. It's up high. So everything that's happening out here is going to be obscured from these folks, not visible to these folks, because of that preservation area that we're putting in there, which includes uplands. Of course, everything that's in here in between, which would become part of the preserve, and then this berm that surrounds the retention pond there. In terms of the zoning, that's all the comprehensive plan issues. I think I went through everything again. The main thrust of what we're trying to show with this map is that we are creating more conservation protected than we are converting for the 2nd Avenue North improvements. In terms of the zoning, what we would do is take the PUD that exists here, we would add that property to it, because that would go into the commercial land use category, and we'd also pull in this property over here into the PUD and do commercial. That's our proposal. We've talked about it a little bit with staff, but if staff has concerns about any aspects of this, of course, we're happy to work it out with staff. So Stephen wanted me to talk about process some. I do want to just touch on the results. The results of all of this, just in a very discrete list here, is that second to last page. 2nd Avenue North and its intersection with 20th Street North. That all gets improved and pulled out of the water at no cost to City of Jacksonville Beach. City of Jacksonville Beach gets some land too. It doesn't show on this map, but on the other map, when City of Jacksonville Beach can pick up, when City of Jacksonville closes this road, is it can pick up some acreage right there in front of that City of Jacksonville Beach Park that is there today. So City of Jacksonville Beach also gets some acreage. The other result is a 100-acre preserve up here with public access via improved 2nd Avenue North and parking and park access over here. As I said, there's no net loss of conservation protected lands because you're getting a lot here and more than what is being used up for the improvements to 2nd Avenue North, etc. Obviously, another result of this is improved access to the City of Jacksonville Beach Park that is here, to the existing restaurant, which is City of Jacksonville Beach property, and to the boat ramp, which is City of Jacksonville property. And as Stephen went into, you'll be getting new marine-related retail/restaurant use right here that will generate revenues and support that boat ramp. The process that Stephen wanted me to go over, Carl, can you flick to the last written page, this page here? Oh, I got it. What am I asking you to do? I got it right here. Okay, here we go. So what we have very broadly discussed with staff is a development agreement between Beach Marine, City of Jacksonville Beach, between Windward at Beach Marine, City of Jacksonville Beach, and City of Jacksonville that would put all this together. Development agreements are done under state statute, the Growth Management Act, and are widely done, and that's what we have discussed with Heather and with Heather's predecessor as well. The comprehensive plan amendments and PUD rezoning, we've gone through that. The City of Jacksonville would do a street closure for its current right-of-way for 2nd Avenue North. Again, both of Windward and City of Jacksonville Beach getting property out of that, getting new acreage out of that. And then lastly, obviously, City of Jacksonville would, it's funding the construction and would dedicate and accept the street, the new 2nd Avenue North. I'm not sure it's been said, but 2nd Avenue North, although it's surrounded by Jacksonville Beach, is per an interlocal agreement with the City of Jacksonville of many years ago. 2nd Avenue North is a City of Jacksonville street because it accesses the City of Jacksonville boat ramp. And that was an interlocal agreement of many years ago, had City of Jacksonville owning and maintaining that 2nd Avenue North. So those are the processes that we would propose. Carl, do I left everything out? Anything out you need to?
I think that about does it.
Okay. I'm going to go, I don't know what you all would want me to leave it on, but I think I'm going to stop at this overall site plan, which kind of shows everything, the big park that will result, 2nd Avenue North relocated, the parking for the boat ramps, and the new park, and then the new marine support use out there. So anything else?
I think one little detail, up in the purple area, we've exclusively designated most of that for trailers. So there's a whole, method to the madness, because right now the trailers are parking, or cars should be parking, that's visiting restaurant and parks. It becomes really difficult to maneuver down in there. So what it's been designed, so you come in, you drop your boat, and then you pull your trailer up kind of in the, it would be north area there. And that's really important because we spend a tremendous amount of time figuring out circulation. How does the restaurant get fed? How does the other sport retail get fed? And where do we put the trailers? So
With that, we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, you've answered most of my questions. I wrote 4 of them down to 1. So I guess this one's more for Heather. The small piece of property that's a little plot of land at the end of 2nd Avenue, that's just below the crosshatch area. Is that conservative protected, conservation protected?
Are you referring to like the kind of linear strip?
Yes.
That's, I
It's
think we're
where the
Go forward one, I think.
there.
just below the crosshatch, right?
the area below the proposed new right-of-way.
And above the purple.
Above the purple, below the crosshatch.
Yeah, that is currently conservation protected, yes.
Ms. Dumont?
Thank you. The comp plan says that we will not be creating any new commercial zones within the city. So you want us to change our comp plan in the middle of us doing a strategic plan to figure out what we want to be? I don't know if you understand where we are as a city right now. We're doing a strategic plan to figure out what it is that our residents and our businesses are trying to get the city to be in the future. And once we have that down, we will then try and align the comprehensive plan and the LDC to go with all of that. And so you're asking us to go in and put something in here before we know what our residents are truly looking for. And I just want to, okay, I like it all. I'm concerned, my biggest concern is that little piece on the, of commercial near the trailer parking. The rest I love, but the commercial change really concerns me. I was on the planning commission when we did the PUD that you've mentioned, and on the south side of the marine was going to be townhouses, industrial on the other side to fix the boats, and on the north side by the park there were also, hotel was approved, a 64-room hotel, I believe. And that was going to be switched over to multifamily if needed, if a hotel wasn't going to be needed. So I like the concept, but I'm really, really concerned about increasing the use of that area with having commercial in that oddly shaped piece.
And the idea behind the commercial is to kind of support that boat ramp facility out there. They're maybe a bait shop, sandwich shop, bait and tackle, where, the boaters have somewhere right there, their easy access when they're going out, where they can, pick up their supplies that they need for their boating activities. So it's intended to kind of be a use for the public where all the boaters really don't have anything out there exclusively at their use. And really just, they have the restaurant, but that kind of causes a little conflict. I guess they could grab some lunch there, but again, it's the marine boat support.
That's right, I thought they had that on the south side of the marine. They have the bait and tackle and all of that in the marine itself currently. And there's a restaurant there. And
there is a restaurant. I believe the bait and tackle place has been demolished. Was that on the east side of the Mobby restaurant? I'm not 100% familiar, but Steph, I don't believe we have.
So there's a bait and tackle store, God bless them, that's on 20th, and that's a huge hazard. Because everybody stops there with their trailers, blocks traffic around that corner, and they run in and they, strategically as a planner, that's the worst place in the world it could be. No pun intended. It needs to be where they offload, they park their trailer and their boat, they go and buy their ice, bait and tackle, and all that stuff, very close to their car. Because right now, there's no support for the boaters whatsoever out there. And the boaters are not, the restaurant's great, we eat all the time, but there's no support. And there's literally hundreds of people pulling up there. They can't buy ice, they can't buy anything. And so we need that support for the boaters for this big expansion, because otherwise they have to go and pull their boats and load it up with ice and stop somewhere else. It's just not efficient.
I would also point out, is it okay for us commenting from here, or do you want us to go to the microphone?
I was going to suggest probably using the microphone because we are broadcasting this meeting, so that would be the best way to capture your comments. Thank you.
Great. So the only other thing I was going to say is really two things. One, when so much money is put into improving 2nd Avenue North and improving the trailer and boat parking out at the end, and providing a new 100-acre park and parking for that, it really creates a need for support use, like Carl was describing, out at the end there. And I would point out that the existing restaurant that is there today is not in commercial. It's in recreation and open space. And we initially suggested that maybe this could go in recreation and open space. We respect staff. Staff said no, that's going to need to go in commercial, and so that's why we put it here in commercial. But I would point out that the existing restaurant there today is in recreation open space and is a supporting use of sorts. But this would really be there to support the boat ramp and the enhanced experience that is provided by the money spent on 2nd Avenue North, the parking, and the new 100-acre park up there too. It's just an additional response.
And COJ is paying for 2nd Avenue North, though.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not coming out of you, it's COJ has covered that.
COJ is putting in $11 million for the construction. Beach Marine is putting in $1 million for the design and permitting for 2nd Avenue North's improvements. And Beach Marine is putting in another number, which we don't have yet, for improving the parking there at the end of 2nd Avenue North. So City of Jacksonville, $11 million for the construction, Beach Marine, design and permitting, Beach Marine, new parking out at the end.
And the place where it used to have fish place on this side of the restaurant, had brick bunches. They knocked it down.
Oh, Billy.
Billy's Boathouse, where that used to stand, that doesn't give you adequate space to be able to put up a tackle shop and ice and meet the needs of the boaters. It's just to the west of the current restaurant,
Not in
in
our
the
view.
west side of the offices that are there.
Not in our view, no ma'am, and plus that's not on our property. The commercial is on our property. We don't feel like we can propose uses on other people's property, so the proposed support, marine support use is on our property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nichols?
Thank you, I appreciate the presentation. Obviously, we do have a big problem out there with the number of people that are trying to utilize the boat ramp. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard, if you don't get out there by 9 or 10 o'clock on a nice day, I mean, good luck. I guess one of my questions is about maintaining access to the boat ramp during the construction of the new, was that 2nd Avenue? Are they going to be able, or is there going to be any impacts to the use of the boat ramp in that area during the roadway construction?
Again, I'm Carl Masters. I'm an engineer, construction manager with Windward Marina Group. That was another reason for the idea to shift the roadway to the north, in addition to site concerns with the tight corner with the existing right-of-way. If you have any emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances that should have to get out there, it's a really tight corner. There is no kind of visual guides or anything to help you make that sharp corner. Just thinking of the traffic in general, you have a lot of the boats with larger trailers that have a tough time navigating that sharp radius. So those things, and also if you move in the right-of-way a little bit to the north to help out with some of those safety problems, that allows the existing right-of-way to be allowable for use for construction as we do that expansion in the new right-of-way to the north.
How high do you think the road's going to be raised in that section? Because one of my concerns has always been the environmental impacts of oil and everything on the road when you flood, and the boats that are in the trailer yard out there and everything. Can you talk about that, and also about your other thoughts on green development out there that y'all are proposing?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Yeah, we'd like to bring, we don't have the final design on exactly elevations yet, but we obviously want to get it up above the floodplain as you're speaking to kind of help with some of the pollution not related to any tidal waters. We have the ponds there, so we definitely want to get it high, but it's not something that's going to be, excessively high. We have the roads back a little bit on 2nd Avenue to the east that don't flood, so in terms of elevation, I'll probably put it somewhere around there. We do have to have a bridge crossing. That's one of the major issues that City of Jacksonville has with the existing right-of-way now, is the bridge is kind of in disrepair and really served its life expectancy to date now. So we do have the bridge crossing, which will obviously have some elevation to it. But other than that, we're just trying to get it high enough so we don't have any of those kind of, the northeastern winds that come in. We have the flood tide. So definitely, your rainy day flooding events, so to speak, as they're called, we're going to avoid all of those. Massive hurricanes, maybe you might have some ancillary flooding here or there. And touching on the green spaces, and Steph spoke about this earlier, you can kind of see the triangle crosshatch there. So that area right there is looking to kind of a holistic approach to solve all the parking issues out there. I believe the boat ramp, as you said, has a parking issue. The restaurant has a parking issue. So we're looking to use that area to kind of help quell some of those issues that we have with the larger boats and the volume that we have with the restaurant. In addition, we can also, with the land grant going to, what's the Florida Trust Fund, if they wanted to do some walking trails and stuff like that for public access as well, you can utilize that area for parking to kind of help support that as well.
Has there been any thought of a mixed-use path in the new roadway, or is it going to be planning on curb and gutter? Is there going to be sidewalk, anything like that, to allow greater access from pedestrians and bicyclists?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes, sir. That's actually curb and gutter, and they have a sidewalk shown on both the north and the southern side of that. We have a more detailed design where GAI consultants kind of helped us out looking at some initial designs. And we can produce that and get that to you guys, but yes, sir. We also, kind of something we want to touch on, it's kind of hard to see here, but you guys do have the existing park there, which we're looking to maybe expand and give. Let me switch to this other side, I can show you a little bit better. Maybe expand your guys' area in here and expand some parking for this public park as well. And in turn, you can kind of see it. Here's our kind of access radius is coming into our multifamily, our future proposed commercial. You know, we want to make sure you guys have access to this park. So the idea is to kind of have a decel lane, a turn off, so people could come access this park safely, and then ultimately this bridge would go away.
You also have bike lanes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's great. I appreciate y'all's interest in Jacksonville Beach, and, you know, I mean, I like the concept of the project, so thank you.
Mr. Mesa?
Do we know how many more parking spots will be added, including the boat spaces, once this is done?
We should know, and we have it laid out. I think it's, we've had a dialogue back and forth with the city of Jacksonville Beach, and we've probably had 5 different plans. And the first plan, I think the feedback we got from staff and so forth was, wow, it's way too many parking spaces. So then we reduced it, and then when we spoke to the current, when we spoke to the current operator of the restaurant, they said, whoa, we need employee parking, because we don't have employee parking today, and we need additional parking, because the restaurant doesn't work. I mean, it's full, but it's kind of a mess there. So we provided additional parking for the current restaurant operator, and we provided additional parking for their employees. And that's kind of up in the north area there. I wanted to address one little thing about the retail, going back to the commissioner here. A lot of input that we took from the North Florida Land Trust, and Rebecca, who runs it, and she said, look, wouldn't it be great if you could sell fishing poles? Wouldn't it be great if you could rent stand-up paddleboard? Wouldn't it be great if you could rent out kayaks? Wouldn't it be great if you could do a sandwich shop, so people visiting the park could have, you know, buy a sandwich, you know, they don't necessarily. So there are a lot of uses. When you solve this whole puzzle and you do build a park, my whole thing about urban design and urban planning is don't get in your car and drive to 10 different places and get ice over here, and bait and tackle over here, and get a sandwich over there when you're dragging a trailer or a paddleboard or whatever on your roof. Go to your destination, get out of your car, and buy it. So it's really important, you know, and I'm speaking kind of from my heart, as a developer, that you give that support retail. And that support retail will help fund the park. And if you want to opt out on a 1% tax, you have the chance to opt out. But we immediately said to the North Florida Land Trust, we'll put a 1% tax. And so did the operator, the current restaurant. They said, wow, that park would be great. So what we were trying to do is not kind of build this spectacular road out of the water to nowhere. And because you can't, even if you had a bait and tackle store next to our current office building, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't work, because you'd have to drag your trailer in front of it, get out of your trailer. There's no trailer parking there, you know. So this is from a developer's perspective. I love people getting to their destination and then having all their amenities around them. So maybe that answers the question.
I would just say, Councilman Mesa, to answer your question, that we don't know the exact number for the parking, but Stephen said there's some push and pull on that. We don't want it to be some big, huge parking lot that people are going to go, we don't want that. But we want it to be enough to serve out there. So we'll work with staff and with planners to come up with the exact right number of parking. You know, soup's too hot, soup's too cold. We'll try and get it just right.
Do we know how many parking spots we have right now?
Oh, existing in the marina?
Yes.
Or in the ramp?
25 existing.
45 existing, says Sam was.
I know last year in the peak of summer, I mean, every spot was taken. Down on Second Avenue, trailers, we had to park our trailer right by Rick's bait shop.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just wondering.
I think it's like at least 150 parking spaces. It includes employee parking, parking for the Rochelle's restaurant, parking for the park, and then there's about 50 just dedicated trailer parking. So plenty of parking, but again, we will take input from staff. We will work with staff and make sure that we meet, peak requirements and that everybody's happy. Because you can only do this once, and do it right. So we have to work together.
And we intentionally didn't put that level of detail together for this meeting, because really it was a matter of taking the temperature of if this council is going to move, forward with this project. So that's why we didn't get into detail on the road design, parking spots, all of that. So there's time to come if we decide we want to move forward with this. Mr. Jansen?
Yeah, so back to the 10.31 acreage that's residential to conservation. This question is probably for our city manager or Heather. So if, I like the plan as a whole, if they relinquish that residential area to conservation, what guarantees, if anything were to move forward in this in the future, would they have to come back in front of a council or mayor, or is there, what kind of language is a lock for that 10.31 acres?
You mean in regards to if they change the land use from the low-density residential to conservation?
Yes.
Yeah, at that point, then all the policies in our comp plan that apply to conservation land use would then apply to that property. So there are several in there that say, they're in the coastal high hazard area, you should be increasing the density, so that sort of thing. But again, we haven't done a detailed analysis since they haven't officially submitted anything to us, but.
However, Windward would still own the property.
Mhm. Yeah, it would still be under their ownership. It would just be a change in the underlying land use.
Mr. Mo?
I mean, we could give it to the land trust. I mean, once it's in conservation, to your point, we have no claim to it, and if it would, if council.
Right, I just want to make sure that it would be secure and that,
No, I
that
totally appreciate that.
a year later, we're moving
Right.
to put houses there.
So we could donate it, again, to the park.
Mr. Mott?
Ms. Island, can you scoot that down up? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. One, is there any grandfathering of height on that property?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and the second piece is, if we were to allow for the change in the comp plan for that one piece of commercial, how does that impact the rest of the city? Because we'd have to take out that we're not allowing any additional commercial land that's zoned commercial. And I don't think the comp plan can get specific saying, except for this 1.2 acres in this area, will allow it there. So if we allow this to be changed to commercial zoning, does that open up the rest of the city where commercial can be developed or added to, or land can be changed to commercial versus, let's say, a multifamily or anything like that?
I mean, I guess it certainly could, and I think the policy that you're referencing says that we don't need more commercially designated property, that where we put commercial should be in infill areas, not in new areas. So it wouldn't necessarily fit in with that policy that you already referenced. So certainly that could set a precedent, but it wouldn't exactly line up with that policy.
So for them to change the comp plan to allow for that to be commercially zoned, that means that we allow additional commercial zoning elsewhere in the city that's not currently zoned commercial, if the comp plan was changed in that way.
If they were changing just the underlying land use of that parcel, no, but it would be in conflict with that policy. So there could be the potential that that policy needs to change to support that. Again, we haven't done that level of detailed analysis on their proposal yet, but it would be something that we need to look at.
Yeah, that was what I was questioning, is they said that you have to change the comp plan, but you can't change the comp plan for one little piece of land.
You can, yeah. So again, it has to be consistent with the rest of the comp plan.
And that's not, because of the density.
With that one policy, it might not be, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thanks. I really love the idea, just that I'm concerned about the ramifications of that one little commercial piece on the end, citywide, not just here.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, I like the plan, on the overall site plan, that one little area is in the proposed park area, so I think if we can get it, just guarantee that, that area that you're taking from residential to conservation, just guarantee that to the North Florida Land Trust, so that way we know, it's guaranteed in that area. I think adding this park area up there would be beneficial to all the people of Jack's Beach. It's a beautiful area if you see it from the water. It's got a lot of stand-up paddleboard, kayakable things. That was one question I had, is do you have any proposed kayak launches? Because there is off and on one there, but it's pretty beat up. And I know if you're talking about putting a place to rent kayaks and stand-up paddleboards, you don't want them launching at the boat ramp. So is there a proposal for some of those?
So the answer is yes. We spent quite a bit of time with the North Florida Land Trust and their designers and ourselves, and we did design a couple of pavilions on the high islands out there. And on those high islands, they had some tiki huts where you could launch a kayak. We also, which we didn't show because again, it was we haven't done anything formal, it's been a discussion, but we addressed that we would build also public restrooms out there because people going to the park, they need restrooms. And so those restrooms will be kind of to the north of where the trailers are, because that doesn't exist out there either, and that's a very important component. So those restrooms will be, the park will be open from dusk to dawn, like most parks. And again, we will bring you the plan once, and if you all decide that you want to move forward in greater detail, that you could, as a workshop, and you could say, oh, too many pavilions, or we didn't design it, the North Florida Land Trust did. But we can certainly share that.
Any other questions? I just wanted to comment on one of the earlier comments that we are in the midst of working on our strategic plan and reviewing our land development code, and a lot of internal work that we have agreed to do as part of planning the future of our city. However, we can't stop the progress and things that are happening in our city, and I think we have an opportunity here with a willing developer to do something that would already agree with some of the things that we've heard so far, in particular from our citizens, which if you really look at our vibrant coastal community that embraces the beach life, this boat ramp is the only public access to the intercoastal waterway. There are only 2 restaurants that you can see the intercoastal waterway from, and they're both within this property. So I think that increasing, and then of course conservation and having some preserved land there is also important to our community and to our city council and our city staff. So I think that there's a lot of wins that can be had here. There's also a lot of work. And several places, as Heather detailed, that this could hit a complete roadblock that even beyond the city council. So, which is another reason why we wanted the planning commission here to hear what we were hearing at this point. So appreciate you all being here. I'm not hearing any strong objections to moving forward. I'm hearing some concerns, some big concerns, but does anybody else have any final thoughts on this project and kind of willingness to move it forward or not? Mr. Mesa?
I do agree with Councilor Corey Nichols on 2nd Avenue North. Needs a lot of work. I know the boat parking, I have friends that are always telling me there's no boat parking or parking. Fortunately, obviously, the city of Jacksonville owns that street. I think this would be a good benefit, not just to the city, but to the city of Jacksonville Beach, for everyone that has a boat. I don't have a boat, I'm not an avid boater, but I do enjoy going out on the boats, and I know the headaches that are being had when you go out on the boat ramp, and it's very complicated. So I think this is great to improving 2nd Avenue North. So those are just my thoughts.
Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, final thoughts. When you drive over, either leaving Jack's Beach or coming to Jack's Beach on Beach Boulevard, this is kind of one of the first areas that you see, and I think the opportunity to really make this really a 5-star facility is finally before us. It's been an area that hasn't been the cleanest and most well-kept area. Changing that, that proposed multifamily area instead of just, empty boat storage, even just those minimal, I know y'all have been working for the last couple of years and just beautifying the place. And when you come over the bridge and you see something that's a lot more attractive than it has been, it's a benefit, to the people visiting here and then us that live here that actually, something for us to be proud of. Kind of final 2 thoughts is I can understand both sides of the argument on the commercial, that one little commercial spot, can understand from the developer side and knowing that, yeah, you do want something that is in a safe spot for the trailers to get all the supplies, the benefit it could have to this. But, if we, all of a sudden open up a can of worms on the comp plan, it could have serious ramifications. So I see that side of it as well. So that'll be one that will definitely further do. The last one I would like just a little kicker is to try to get some improvements to that public park there. You kind of mentioned just kind of a turnoff for parking, but it's kind of a forgotten park for Jack's Beach, and it is actually a pretty nice little area. So if there's any way to throw in some park improvement plans more than just a turn off of the roads for safe parking, that I would be in favor of that, and I think that would really make this a great deal for the whole city.
Ms. Golding?
This is I agree with everybody. This has a lot of really good opportunities in it. I will say that for many years, we have tried to get that property into conservation that's north of Beach Marine. We had citizens that drove to Tallahassee back in 2007 or 8, and we got Florida Forever funding for that property, but twice we were not ever able to get across the finish line on that. So I think that the conservation of that property would be huge for our community. The flooding on 2nd Avenue is terrible, and my husband and I have a Jeep, and we went out there on one of the high tides, and we were afraid to even try to navigate through the water. It definitely needs to be fixed. The parking is a big issue. I will say this is my district. I'm a district representative, and so Beach Marine is in my district, and I have had several people who talked to me about the fact that the boat ramp parking is insufficient for our community and the use of the boat ramp. So anything we can do to increase the boat ramp parking, which was also something we were trying to do with the Florida Forever funding, would be very beneficial to the community. I have to agree, though, that I do have concerns about, and I think we need to look very carefully when we are considering a change to the comp plan with regard to the commercial and what kind of can of worms we could be opening if we change it in such a way that it could impact the rest of the city. But I definitely think that there are some good opportunities here. I just want us to be very careful in how we proceed.
Ms. Dumont?
Thank you. Ms. Arlen, what was the specific part that you said that this would go against in the code? the commercial would go against what part of the code? So even if you changed the comp plan to allow for commercial, it was going, a commercial use there would
It was the policy that you referenced, and I don't have the exact number, but it says something along the lines of, we're good on commercial development, we have enough places to put it, so any new commercial will go in infill areas, not in new locations. So this would be considered in a potentially new location, since it's surrounded by non-commercial uses, it's surrounded by conservation and recreation. So
okay.
that was what I was making reference to.
And it's up to the applicant to demonstrate that this application is meeting those criteria, correct?
Right, part of their application will be to show us that it's consistent with the comp plan, and any changes they make will make the comp plan, it will continue to be internally consistent. So any changes with the land, the actual land use is consistent with the policy, then policies are consistent with the rest of the goals, objectives, and policies.
And does the potential applicant have any reply to that? Because that's what the development comes down to.
We're pulling up the section, so. So what I can say, I'm going to have the applicant and then Stefan can say, so that is a very important part of our proposal to us, because a lot of money is being spent by a lot of people to improve 2nd Avenue North, to go out there and to provide additional parking for the boat ramp and everything. We really think that the boat ramp needs to be upgraded, not only in its parking and in the design of its access and parking, but in the facilities and uses that would support it. We would hope to, William just handed me his baby's picture was here, so I lost the comp plan policy, but I have a baby picture to show you, maybe that'll work.
Code is 935412.
So, we would hope that maybe we will take a look at some arguments that we fit within the policy, perhaps as it being supportive commercial use or effectively infill, because it is supporting the boat ramp that's right there. We will look at the other commercial areas that Beach Marine has to see if maybe there's some kind of swap off or something that could be done. I don't know whether that's possible, but we'll look at that. I guess what I'm saying is we'll look very carefully at that policy, and we'll come up with the best grounds that we can come up with to make it consistent with that policy and fit within that policy. And I'll also, again, emphasize that the existing restaurant that's there is not in commercial. It's in recreation and open space because it supports a recreational use there, that is the boat ramps. We think this could be in recreation open space, but we're happy to make the case that commercial would also be consistent with the comprehensive plan policies. So we would hope that everybody keeps an open mind. We'll come back with arguments and with facts and with maybe some swap-offs or something that would get to that policy. But for Stefan and for Beach Marine, that use at the end, which is on property it owns, uplands that it owns, that use is very important to the whole puzzle here. So, Stefan, anything else to say about that?
No, I fully respect the commissioner's concern, and I don't take that lightly. So, in Martha's Vineyard, where we own 2 marinas, we have a very similar situation. They were in the middle of their comprehensive plan, and so I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know exactly the technicalities, but they amended the plan to say that for marine and working waterfront uses, it was very specific in the plan that you could show, you can actually do related support uses like stand-up paddleboard rentals, kayaks, restaurants, a shrimp shack, all these things. So it was very specifically written in the amendment to the code and the change of the code that it only relates to like a public boat ramp, because it's a very similar situation. And if I had the language from Martha's Vineyard, I'd bring it, because we have a huge conservation trust and a land bank, and it's a very, very similar dilemma that we solved in Martha's Vineyard. I wish I had that language here now, but maybe TR and I could do some work on it, and maybe we could introduce some language that helps the commission and the mayor to kind of really call it out for what it is, that it is something that serves the visiting and general public at large, and it serves the park, and it, maybe we could do something around that. So that, we would come back to you on that, maybe with some language mirroring what we did in Martha's Vineyard.
Sure, thank you. Ms. Ireland, just one more time. Is it possible to create, if we're going to go into the comp plan, is it possible to create a new zone in such a way that he's describing as an ancillary use to a recreational facility, and be able to hem in what can be done on that property to ice, fishing shack, that kind of thing? Is that possible? So this way, we don't all of a sudden end up with a 3-story bar on the water interrupted.
Yeah, I think it might be possible. We'd have to do some more research and reading into, what could we consider rec open space as opposed to commercial, what the limits would be, and work with the landowner to decide, what that might look like. There is another policy in the comp plan, kind of to your point about Martha's Vineyard, that says if marinas are going to be expanded, it will be limited to dry storage, essentially. So I'm not sure where that came from, long before I started working here, but there might be some opportunities there. We would just have to really kind of dig down deep and discuss what those might be, what those options are, and how to proceed forward with it.
Because what I'm hearing is very low intensity commercial use, not like a plaza or anything like that. So I think there is some common ground, but research needs to be done on how we can accommodate that to not negatively impact other properties in the city.
Yeah, and I think, I agree, I think we would need a little bit more detail too on exactly what they're proposing, the mix of uses, how large, that sort of thing, to see how it would fit in.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, if I may add one last thing. So the language, again, in Massachusetts, in Martha's Vineyard, was it was very expensive. It was like 100 things you couldn't do in that commercial zone. And it just listed one after the other, and it narrowed it down to strictly working waterfront related sort of marina uses. I don't know if that's what we did.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
It seems to me that there's a lot of wins for everybody in this proposal so far. I am interested to see where we go from here, and I'm definitely open to that. For the policy, I wasn't around when it was developed, but it seems to me for Jacksonville Beach that policy was more to keep commercial creep from going into the residential area, seeing that we were built out, and I don't think there was probably a lot of thought. I'm not sure when it was developed. It didn't seem to me like there was a lot of thought that there was actually new land to develop for commercial. But I would like to see, possibly, what we could do to, what the options are. So I'm definitely open to moving forward.
Any other comments from council? So we have some concerns that we've addressed here today, and Ms. Ireland, can you talk about what the next steps, the way you see them, would be for the property owner and for the city?
Sure. Obviously, I think we probably need to have some more conversations with them, and then, once they kind of get everything squared away, they would submit some official applications to the city, which we would process and move forward to you guys. So again, Florida statute allows them to move changes to the comp plan and the land development code, the zoning atlas. They can move those processes along at the same time. So you would see all that at once, most likely.
Thank you. Anybody have any final comments from Windward? All right. I just want to say I appreciate your willingness to work with us. I think that you've been patient through the transition of a city manager, a planning director, and a council. And I appreciate our council's participation in asking informed questions and evaluating this project as we move forward. And also just from an aesthetic perspective, Beach Marine is looking so much nicer these days. And you guys have put a lot of time, money, effort into really improving that property. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes and hope that ultimately we can stay consistent with what we've said we want to do in the city's mission and vision, and just give our residents and visitors a really nice opportunity to get to the water, which is just shocking that we don't have that right now. So thank you everyone for being here today, and our next meeting is, we have like 3 more meetings this week, so I'll see you guys Wednesday. Wednesday. Thursday. We have Thank you all for being here tonight, and if you guys want to hang out and if there's any informal questions to be asked, I'm sure this will be a great opportunity for that. Thank you all.